Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat. Delighted to be joined by Elliot Grigg. We are in awe of Artur Beterbiev's performance against Joe Smith Jr., which happened in the early nights of Sunday morning over in New York in Madison Square Garden. We're going to be but Beterbiev is kind of still undefeated, hasn't come that close to losing in his career so far. We know he's won all of his fights by knockout, which is quite unique. And what we want to do is just look at possible ways in which he could lose, which kind of might sound like we're against him, but like that's definitely not the case. Elliot, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate your time. It was a quick one last night, but just interested to get your thoughts on the fight against Joe Smith Jr.
I was stunned. I mean, to be honest with you, like, I don't get me wrong, I predicted Beterbiev to win, but the fact that it happened so quickly was quite shocking. I was quite lucky, actually, that I didn't stay up for it. I kind of woke up naturally around that time, stuck it on. But yeah, I was anticipating more sort of 6 to 8, 6 to 9 sort of knockout. I thought, Smith Jr. would be more durable, essentially. And I've seen a lot of criticism today about his tactics going into the fight. I say going into the fight after he got hit, essentially, which just seemed to be just throw caution to the wind and go out on your shield, which is commendable in some ways, to be honest with you. I mean, I can't sit here and go, that was a terrible decision. I've not been punched by Beterbiev, so, it is what it is. But I think, I just think devastating, ridiculously impressive. Again, another one that everyone's now sticking in the top 10 pound for pound. So I just think, unbelievable performance.
Good stuff. Yeah, it was definitely a kind of another brutal stoppage, and as you mentioned far earlier than a lot of people predicted. We're going to kind of look at a couple of the divisions and see how you think certain fighters would get up against him. It's difficult to predict because you don't know what certain fighters are going to look like at light heavyweight, what's Beterbiev going to look like at certain weight. So it's all just, it's all quite kind of subjective stuff. And whether we actually see some of these fights, we don't know. Going to go straight into it. Canelo Alvarez fights Golovkin later this year. Everyone's expecting him to win that fight. Then is expected to rematch Dmitry Bivol next year. I think there's still a possibility he could fight Beterbiev, whether he wins or loses against Bivol, just because that's another massive fight. I think Beterbiev pre-Canelo Bivol 1 was kind of more well-known, possibly was a bigger star, was maybe seen as a more exciting fighter than Bivol. So that's still a fight I would love to see, but wouldn't happen anytime soon. We've seen Canelo at light heavyweight twice now. He's 1-1 at light heavyweight, so not a great record at light heavyweight. Beat Kovalev, but lost to Bivol on points. How do you think Canelo and Beterbiev at light heavyweight what would happen, do you think?
I think Canelo needs to leave light heavyweight alone, frankly. I just think, don't get me wrong, we've seen Canelo, it's commendable. He's gone in with Kovalev, he's gone in with Bivol, but Kovalev's not the fighter he was in his prime when he fought Canelo, and he hadn't had a lot of break off since he fought previous to that as well. He was actually doing well against Canelo before he got stopped. So again, there was warning signs there that Canelo was campaigning above potentially where he should be. And then the Bivol fight, people were obviously going, well, USA, Canelo, Cinco de Mayo, he's going to lose on points.
Yeah,
beat him. And I think I can probably back him to beat him in the rematch. And I think, to be honest with you, I think if Canelo goes, we've seen Canelo take some serious digs from Triple G before and not go down. He's not been stopped previously. So in that respect, it's interesting. However, I just don't think he should go up there and fight him. I honestly just think it's hard for me to sit here and say that Beterbiev will knock him out, but at the same time, it's kind of the suspicion I do get. I think if he doesn't, it'll take some serious years off Canelo's career, to be quite honest with you. But having said that, I mean, people have said, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but people have also said that I suppose the one thing we need to see with Beterbiev is to be in with a hard-hitting kind of counter-puncher. So in a way, Canelo would kind of fit that bill, but I just don't know. I mean, he iced Kovalev obviously up at that weight, but I'm not convinced that he's as hard-hitting as he needs to be up there, frankly, to make the difference. So I would have Beterbiev winning. I wouldn't want to see him stop Canelo, but I think he probably would. I think it'd be late. It'd be somewhere like mid to late rounds, in my opinion.
Good stuff. I think that, yeah, we'll see what happens with Canelo and Golovkin, Canelo Bivol, the rematch possibly. I just think it was clear in the Bivol fight that Canelo's power isn't what it is at super middleweight, and I think he felt some of the shots from Bivol. And if that's correct, if you're feeling some of the shots from Bivol, you're definitely going to feel some shots from Beterbiev. So yeah, we will see if that's still an absolutely massive fight, if that fight can happen one day. Gonna go straight to light heavyweight division now. There's no doubt over who the two best light heavyweights in the world are right now. First of all, we don't know if it's ever going to happen. I've never heard of this fight being close to happening at any point, but these guys hold all the belts at light heavyweight now. Is there a big clash of styles, but who would you lean towards if Beterbiev and Bivol fought each other? I think if Bivol beats Canelo in the rematch, I wonder if that fight can happen this time. Towards the end of next year. Who knows? But yeah, who is there? Someone I know it's a tough one to ask, but who would you lean towards in that fight?
Hell of a fight, because like you say, it is such a clash of styles.
I
would, and then also you've got to take, I suppose, into account that Beterbiev is what he's like 37 now as well.
Yeah.
Bivol will be what 31, 32 then. It's a close fight. I mean, you look like we were saying, you want a hard-hitting counter puncher. In a way, Bivol isn't that though. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, he holds a punch, but at that, compared to obviously someone like Beterbiev, what is he, like 11 KOs and 20 or something? So you're sitting there going, I don't know, he won't be able to hold. I don't think he'll be able to hold him off him necessarily. I mean, obviously, he won't play that jab and try and keep distance, but I think at some point he will get hit, and it's going to be a case of can he stand up to that? And having seen what we saw last night, I don't know if he can. I mean, it'd be a hell of a fight. It'd be the fight I want to see. I think it's the fight that everyone in that division, or anyone even in boxing, wants to see.
Yeah.
So hopefully that happens instead of the Anthony Yarde fight. But I just think what we saw last night, I'd have to lean towards Beterbiev unless he lost a bit essentially through age, or just whether Bivol was maybe able to keep him off him. But I just don't think he can. I don't think he will be able to. So I'd go late stoppage in that fight as well, to be honest, 9-12.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing about Beterbiev is that he's 37, 38 in January, I believe. And you just don't know. He just kind of in a year's time, he could be past his best and in decline. It could be a very different conversation. Saying that, he's had 18 fights. So because of that reason, it's not all about kind of age. It's about how much you put your body through, I suppose. And that's why kind of certain fighters have fought on kind of into their late 30s. And I think he's one of those fighters. I do think we'll see him fight until he's 39, 40, because he's not had those, obviously kind of he put down against Callum Johnson. He's maybe had a couple of tough fights, but I don't think he's taken a lot of punishment in my opinion. And that, along with the 18 fights statement, I think we'll see him fight for another 2 or 3 years. Is there anyone else in the light heavyweight division that you look at who could now or in a year's time give Beterbiev some problems? Rumours are he's going to be coming to London, which is fantastic, by the way, in October to fight Anthony Yarde. As we know, we've got Callum Smith, Joshua Buatsi, is just beating Joe Smith Jr., as we know. John Pascal is still knocking around. Out of all those guys or anyone else in the division, is there anyone who you look at and you're like, I think he could give Beterbiev some problems?
In a word, no. I genuinely don't. I mean, you look at like some of those names you've mentioned there. So obviously Anthony Yarde. No, I know he's got obviously he's got a hell of a KO record as well, so like 21 out of 22, I think, or something like that, KOs. So you're sitting there going, all right, he carries power, but frankly, I think he's going to get decapitated. I really do. I just don't see. I know he's sitting there last night giving it, I'm going to do what he did to Joe Smith to him, and it's just. I mean, I'm kind of that Lyndon Arthur fight was a bit like the first one that he lost. I suppose was a bit of a anomaly in some ways, because you never looked like he got going. So I'm kind of like, he obviously had a lot of personal problems. So I'm not criticizing for that as well. So that was kind of an aberration, really. I'm not really counting that, but I mean, just looking at the people he's fought, essentially, outside of Kovalev, who kind of handled him quite. I mean, he had success here and there. Don't get me wrong, but he was getting pretty comprehensively beaten. I just think, and eventually stopped on the jab. I just think, no way. No, not a chance in hell. I mean, I know you can sit as well say that, like, Callum Johnson put down Beterbiev. Granted, he did, but I don't see Yarde beating him. I think a lot of people have said Callum Smith can beat him or give him problems, obviously with the size difference that there'd be. Don't see that happening either, simply for the fact that saw Callum Smith fight Canelo, and Canelo was whacking him on the arms a bit, and he complained about that. As soon as Beterbiev starts touching him, it's not going to be like being touched by Canelo. So I think, frankly, and I think, don't get me wrong, I don't dislike Callum Smith necessarily, but I think he kind of quite one-dimensional as a fighter in some ways. It doesn't tend to sort of switch up game plans when he's sort of in fights. So I think as soon as like Beterbiev starts homing in, that'll be a stoppage. Well, actually, it's a strange one for me because I almost feel like we still don't know a lot about him really. Like, he's still not really hit a level you can sit there and go, right, he's ready for this. But in a weird way, like, his is the style that I probably would say out of all the British lads would give Beterbiev the toughest fight. Don't think I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to win that. I don't think he will, but I still think it's a decent fight. Pascal, no. There's no one. There's no one I can.
No.
Bivol the only one where I'd sit there and go, this is a close fight. It's the closest fight in that division due to difference of styles. But other than that, the guys beneath him, no. I mean, Callum Johnson did well. In hindsight, that you look at what happened in that fight, you think actually fair play to him.
Yeah.
At the time, everyone was sort of going, oh, fucking hell, like he's got to the big stage, he's been iced like in that fashion. But actually, you look at it now and you go, fair play, like tried to rush him, dropped him, whatever. But then that happened. So yeah, I just think no chance, mate. No.
Callum Smith, Joshua Buatsi, Anthony Yarde. For entertainment reasons, what's the one fight you would like to see Beterbiev go up against if he's kind of coming to the UK, kind of just to kind of show, not kind of showcase himself, but to come over, and it's a good opportunity for UK fans to see kind of a pound for pound fighter, the same way as when Golovkin came over to fight Kell Brook, Lomachenko came over to fight Luke Campbell. It was, Usyk came over to fight Joshua. It's great. It's great. We're in a great position to have these fighters come over to the UK and to see them in the flesh. Out of those fights I mentioned, for entertainment reasons, what's the one you would be interested in seeing the most?
What a tough question that is. I'd say you could sit there and go, to be honest, I'm going to say Buatsi again, because a lot of people probably sit there giving it to Callum Smith, obviously well-known, big following. But I look at obviously the fights that he's had when he lost to John Ryder, when he lost to Canelo, he beat like Hassan Dam, an old version of him, beat a retiring George Groves. So I don't think there's nothing in that kind of CV that necessarily makes me think he'll stand up to it. And I just think, yeah, all right, he's got power, but yeah, not enough for me really. I think Buatsi's the one just because there's that intrigue around like the perception of him being capable of this level and still kind of operating kind of comfortably, to be fair, like around this sort of level. He's not bad in a couple of fights, but like around here. But you still feel there's more to come. And I just think that kind of style is the most intriguing to me. I think Anthony Yarde will try and, I suppose, fight 5-5. There'll be lions in the camp. Tunde will have written something down, but I just think it's going to be. And I like Anthony Yarde, to be honest with you, but I just think it's going to be a stoppage there. So Buatsi's the one for me that I'd be most intrigued by.
We'll see. I mean, I think there's a possibility that could happen. I think Buatsi's rumoured to be facing Bivol in September, I believe. If that fight happens, then yeah, you can't rule out a fight between those two next year, and that maybe that fight would be in the UK as well. Final division we're going to cover. Beterbiev could find himself in a position where Bivol fight's not happening, Canelo's not going back to light heavyweight, so he might think to himself, right, I'm gonna move up and I'm gonna win a world title at cruiserweight as well. As we know, it's a big step up, 175 pounds to 200 pounds. Marius Bradis, Lawrence Okoli, Ilunga Makabu, some of the champions in that division. First question is, can Beterbiev go up and win a world title at cruiserweight?
I think he can, and I think though it would have to be against Bradis. It's the one I'd look at and go, what's he, 37 now? So he's obviously not. He's a similar age, obviously, to Beterbiev. I think there's only a couple of inches. I mean, Beterbiev's 5'11". I think Bradis is around 6'1". So I think, in a way, you can kind of think that difference in size and stature isn't so profound. So I think there's a chance of winning a belt there. I think you look at someone like Oakley, who's like 6'5" or something outrageous. That's a big difference coming up. And obviously Oakley carries power. You can say what you want about Oakley's style, but that's a tough nut to crack, and he can bang. So for me, I think that's a really good fight.
Yeah.
And I might even. I don't want to say it. Don't make me say it. I think Oakley might even stop him, up there. But I think he can. I think he can compete at cruiserweight. Frankly, I think Breedis be the one if he's going to look for getting a title. Go there.
Yeah.
Again, obviously, like you say there's Makabu, who's obviously, not the youngest anymore either. So there's potential for him to bang him out as well. I think those two you've obviously got to look at really as opposed to going near Oakley. Makabu's like 6 foot as well. So again, a shorter champion. The difference in physicality is not there as it is with Oakley. So yeah, Makabu or Breedis. I'd lean towards Breedis, I think, just because he's 3 or 4 years older than Makabu. So chance there though.
Yeah, so I feel like with Okolie, rumors coming back that he's wants to move up to heavyweight. I think that the fights that he wants at cruiserweight, i.e. the unification fights, don't seem to be happening. So yeah, I feel like I agree with what you're saying. Beterbiev versus Breedis is possibly the most likely fight. Breedis is, a lot of people are seen as number one in the division, and yeah, I think it would be that would be fascinating as well. Just
if Breedis Paul falls through, then hopefully we can see.
yeah, exactly. Just strange character. Final question from me, Elliot, and I think that as we touched on Beterbiev's age a little bit in this video, which you have to, you can't ignore it, because he's not going to be fighting in 10 years. He's unlikely to be fighting in 5 years, really. He's a fantastic, clearly a fantastic fighter. Love the fact he's won all of his fights by stoppage. He was fighting a legitimate world champion in Joe Smith last night, and beat him up in 2 rounds, which is just outstanding. What do you want to see him do in his career? I'm not talking about in terms of fights and particular names, but do you want to just see him kind of just take all comers at light heavyweight? Do you really want to see him move up in cruiserweight when really he's a light heavyweight? What say he's got 2.5 years left? What do you want to see him do?
I think first and foremost, fight Bivol. That's the first thing. Unify that division, and then from there, I suppose you're looking then at kind of super fights, the age you're at essentially, and obviously if you, irrespective of whether you KO Bivol or not, obviously the record that you will have, you can essentially just pad that out, I suppose, go from fight to fight. I just don't think Canelo will fight him. I really don't. I think it'd be a poor decision to fight unless he waits till he's like 40 odd, say, and catches him on the kind of triple G decline. Maybe you'll fight him then, but I don't see him necessarily biting anyone's hand off to take that fight.
Yeah.
So then I suppose it's kind of whether you want to see him step up, go to cruiserweight, try and beat Breedis. I can happily see that happen. So if he goes Bivol, then Breedis, brilliant, fantastic. I wouldn't necessarily want him to. I wouldn't want him to go up into cruiser, but like you say, the age he is, and be fighting, kind of fighting contenders. Like, imagine sticking with like Riekpo. Obviously, that wouldn't happen, but like fighting kind of guys around that kind of level.
Yeah.
Masternak, those sort of guys. I wouldn't want to see him fighting people like that. So it's almost like if you're going to unify, maybe unify light heavy, and then just essentially just try and negotiate the biggest fight possible. But I would want to see him build up a cruiserweight, frankly.
Yeah,
I'm almost, to be honest with you, I'd see him fight if Kovalev's still going. I'd see him fight Kovalev just because it's a name. I think he'd absolutely destroy him, obviously, but it's like I'd rather see him in kind of like higher profile fights like that than see him trying to build up a like cruiserweight. If you go straight in for like a Breedis, do that. But if not, don't be fighting like top 10 fighters cruiserweight.
Yeah, we'll see. I think one thing that we could find out about Beterbiev is that I don't think a lot of fighters are going to be desperate to fight him. And because of his age, you might have some fighters who are advised just to kind of wait until he gets a bit older. Yeah. And then as soon as they think he might be declined, then kind of call him out, then demand the fight. I think there could be
probably have Chris Eubank Jr. calling him out in about 6 years, man. But the thing is, like, what I reckon you will have is like people like, what you should have had is people like Anthony Yard should have been waiting. And then call him out, and if like don't call him out now because he's still got far too much for you. Yeah. But like sit maybe like 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, maybe start that train. But I think, at the moment, it's just far too soon.
Yeah, just
I was going to ask you something, actually, just because it's been talked about recently. It's just a case of, so Beterbiev, obviously now his profile's kind of shot up to here. But people have been kind of talking about how he'd fare against other guys at sort of light heavy. And the two names that tend to be standing out really are kind of a prime Kovalev or a prime Andre Ward. I was just wondering where you stand actually on. I mean, I want to throw Usyk in there, even though he's like big, obviously up a cruiser. But the thought of Beterbiev fighting Usyk is just like, it just does things to me. But I think like if you throw like, at least obviously Kovalev and Ward campaigned at that weight regularly. So yeah, those two in their prime versus Beterbiev in his prime. How do you see those fights playing out?
I love Andre Ward. I think big fan of his. However, I just thought his best days were at super middleweight. So I would edge towards Beterbiev for that fight. And I think as we saw in the first Kovalev fight, it was a very, very close fight. Got put down by Kovalev. So I would edge towards Beterbiev just because he's a more natural light heavyweight, and size, as we saw with Canelo's last fight, size does matter. I just do think by the time Andre Ward came up to light heavyweight, he was a bit past his best. Was still able to beat Kovalev twice, but was a bit past his best. So I would go with Beterbiev for that one.
Thanks. Well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's interesting to see where you're trying to put him.
Yeah, and the Kovalev fight.
Nice, but it's just like, I'm just happy to enjoy the ride while it happens. It's a shame he's not 5 years younger.
It's a shame. Yeah, it is a shame. He'd be around for so much longer. But I feel like the Kovalev fight, I'm struggling to give a prediction for, just be purely for. I know it's a cliche, but styles do make fights. So yeah, I'm not sure I can give you a prediction for that one. But yeah, would you be willing to give one?
It's hard because like you're sort of looking at it now, and you like from like the recent call. It's hard to just go back to Kovalev like Pascal sort of era where he was absolutely savage.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah, I struggle as well, but I wouldn't want, because I don't want to sort of diminish Cover in that way and just say he'll get iced. I don't necessarily think he would. But it's hard for me to look beyond what we saw yesterday. But I just think I'm not going to give a prediction frankly to that one either. I'll set on the fence. But I do think I agree with you that I think Andre Ward would lose. I just think again, like you're saying, size matters, and eventually get to him.
Yeah.
Then that'd be the end of that. I know he's obviously brilliant, but I just think at some point he'd get to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's maybe kind of one for another video. It's almost kind of a fantasy fight because Kovalev's been past his best for so long now. And yeah, to see that fight would.
Well, I don't think Beterbiev's he's still not getting. He did a bit after last night, but still not getting the actual credit for his boxing ability. We're just kind of assuming he's just going to sort of go in and sort of like Tyson people, but I think there'll be some shock when you put him in someone like Bifford. Almost needs to showcase that.
Yeah. No, interesting stuff. Well, we'll see what is left in the career of Artur Beterbiev. Hopefully many more nights to come, many more knockouts to come, and who knows? Maybe in a year's time we'll be talking about Canelo against Beterbiev, or Beterbiev against Bivol, or Beterbiev against Marius Bradis. Who knows? We'll have to see. When it's all said and done, same with the new way that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. We'll have to see if anyone can beat this guy. But it's been great discussing that with you, Elliot. And thanks for joining me. We'll see what's next for him.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Elliot.
Cheers, mate.